I never thought a simple receipt would change my entire life. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was doing something completely normal, something I had done hundreds of times before. I was doing laundry. My husband Daniel had left for work early that morning. He worked as a financial consultant and often came home late. Our routine had become predictable over the years. He worked long hours, I handled most of the household things, and we spent weekends together trying to reconnect after busy weeks. Nothing seemed unusual. But that afternoon, as I emptied the pockets of his jacket before putting it into the washing machine, a folded piece of paper fell onto the floor. At first, I didn't think much of it. Daniel always had receipts, business cards, and random notes in his pockets. But when I picked it up, something caught my attention. It wasn't from a restaurant. It wasn't from a store. It was a monthly rent receipt. My stomach tightened as I read the address. A studio apartment. Paid in cash. Every month. For the past 8 months. I stared at the paper, feeling a strange sensation spreading through my chest. Daniel and I already owned our house. Why would he be paying rent for another apartment? My first thought was innocent. Maybe it was an office. Maybe it was an investment property. Maybe he was helping someone. But something about the secrecy made my hands tremble. If it were something normal, why hide it? I placed the receipt on the table and stared at it for almost 10 minutes. My mind kept repeating the same sentence. My husband has a secret apartment. And I had no idea why. That evening, when Daniel came home, I decided to test something. I didn't show him the receipt immediately. Instead, I watched him. He walked in, kissed me on the cheek, loosened his tie, and dropped his briefcase next to the couch. "Long day," he sighed. I smiled. "Anything interesting happened today?" He shook his head. "Just meetings." Then he opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. That was when I asked casually, "Do you ever go near Brookside Avenue for work?" For a fraction of a second, Daniel froze. It was so quick that most people would have missed it. But I didn't. Brookside Avenue. The exact street printed on the receipt. He turned around slowly. "Not really," he said. "Why?" My heart started beating faster. I forced a small laugh. "Oh, I just passed by there today. Lots of new apartments." He shrugged. "Yeah, that area is growing." Then he changed the subject immediately. "What's for dinner?" That was the moment something inside me shifted. Because I knew something Daniel didn't know. And that meant he had just lied to me. The next day, curiosity completely took over. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that receipt again. Finally, around noon, I grabbed my car keys. "I just need to know," I whispered to myself. The address wasn't far, about 20 minutes away. Brookside Avenue turned out to be a quiet street filled with modern apartment buildings. The kind that young professionals rented. I drove slowly until I saw the number printed on the receipt. Building 417. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. What am I about to find? I parked across the street and stared at the building. People walked in and out. A delivery driver carried boxes inside. A couple laughed while unlocking the front door. Normal life. But for me, it felt like I was standing outside a mystery. I finally forced myself to get out of the car. Inside the building lobby, there was a small board with apartment numbers. And there it was. Apartment 3B. I walked toward the elevator, my heart pounding so loudly I thought people could hear it. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, the hallway was quiet. Soft lights. Gray carpet. Closed doors. Then I saw it. 3B. I stood there for almost a full minute. My hand slowly lifted toward the door. Then, footsteps behind me. I turned quickly. A woman in her early 20s walked past me carrying groceries. She smiled politely and entered the apartment across the hall. I suddenly felt ridiculous. What was I doing? I didn't even know if Daniel was there, or what this place was. So I turned around and left. But something deep inside me told me this story wasn't going to end easily. 2 weeks passed. 2 long weeks of pretending everything was normal. But I was paying attention now. Daniel's schedule. His phone calls. His excuses. And something became very clear. Every Thursday evening, he came home late. Very late. Client dinners, he always said. So on the third Thursday, I decided to follow him. I felt like someone else driving behind his car through the city streets. But my instincts told me to keep going. 20 minutes later, Daniel turned onto Brookside Avenue. My chest tightened. He parked near Building 417. Then he stepped out of the car and walked straight inside. No hesitation. No confusion. Like someone who had done it many times before. Because he had. I waited in the car for 10 minutes. Then I walked toward the building entrance. But before I reached the door, something unexpected happened. Daniel walked back out. He looked relaxed. Calm. Like someone leaving their own home. In his hand, he held something small. A key. The next day, I returned to the building. This time, I had a plan. I knocked on the door of the apartment across from 3B. After a moment, the same young woman opened it. "Oh. Hi," she said. "Hi," I smiled nervously. "I'm looking for someone who might live across the hall." She glanced behind her at the door. 3B? "Yes," I said carefully. "Do you know the man who lives there?" She thought for a second. "Oh, the quiet guy?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, I guess. He's nice," she said. "But he's not here much. Only comes once or twice a week." My throat felt dry. "Does he live alone?" She shrugged. "I think so." Then she added something that made my heart stop. "But sometimes I hear him talking inside, like he's on the phone or something." I forced a smile and thanked her. But my mind was racing. If he wasn't living there, then why pay rent for months? Why keep it secret? And who was he talking to? 3 days later, I did something I never imagined myself doing. I used the spare key from Daniel's keychain. I had secretly copied it. Standing outside apartment 3B felt surreal. My hands shook as I inserted the key. The lock clicked. Slowly, the door opened. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. Minimal furniture. A couch. A small table. A bookshelf. And a bed in the corner. But what shocked me the most were the photos. On the wall. Photos of Daniel. Dozens of them. But they weren't normal pictures. They were old photos. Photos from years ago. Photos from before we even met. Then I saw something else. A small desk. And on the desk, a notebook. My heart pounded as I opened it. Page after page. It was filled with handwriting. Daniel's handwriting. Notes. Memories. Dates. Then I read one sentence that made tears fill my eyes. "This is the place where I come to remember who I used to be before everything changed." I turned the page. And then I saw another sentence. I don't know how to tell her the truth. That night, I confronted him. I placed the receipt and the notebook on the table. Daniel's face turned pale. "You went there," he whispered. "Yes." For a long time, he didn't speak. Then he finally sat down and told me something I never expected. The apartment wasn't for another woman. It wasn't a secret relationship. It wasn't an affair. 8 months earlier, Daniel had gone through something he never told me about. He had lost a major client, almost lost his job, and had fallen into a deep depression. But instead of telling me, he hid it. The apartment became his escape. A place where he could think. Write. Process his fears. He didn't want me to see him struggling. "I thought I had to be strong for you," he said quietly. Tears rolled down my face. "You didn't have to hide." He looked at me with regret. I was ashamed. For the first time in months, I saw the vulnerability behind his silence. And suddenly, the mystery of the secret apartment didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like loneliness. A week later, Daniel took me back to apartment 3B. Together. We sat on the small couch where he had spent so many silent nights. Then he handed me the key. "This place doesn't need to be a secret anymore." A month later, we ended the lease. But I kept the notebook because it reminded me of something important. Sometimes the biggest secrets in a marriage aren't about betrayal. Sometimes they're about pain we're too afraid to share.